So this is my own car. It's a Honda Civic 1.6 manual petrol. It's got a 5-speed gearbox. It's got ABS, which means in the event of emergency, stomp and steer. If I have to steer away from my hazard brake at the same time, as opposed to any kind of cadence braking I might do on an older car without ABS. It's apart from that, really, it's got airbags. I'm making sure they're clear now. I haven't looked at side airbags as well as the dashboard airbags and the steering wheel airbag. They're all clear. It doesn't have any other controls like traction control or anything else to worry about at all, really. I'm also happy with all the controls. I know where the indicators are and all the rest of it. It's my own car, so I'm quite familiar with it. Basically, I'm happy that this car, I do the weekly checks on it myself. I'm happy they were done just a few days ago. And those weekly checks, remembered about an acronym. Well, the acronym I like to do for this part is Powdery. Powdery B, actually. And Powdery stands for petrol. Well, we'll check that as part of the dashboard checks. Oil was topped up to the maximum mark a few weeks ago and it hasn't drifted since. I've checked it a couple of days ago. It was fine. Water and fluid levels, well, the screen washer topped up and the other fluid levels were fine. They don't move in this car, and I've checked them, as I say, every week anyway. The brake fluid, the clutch fluid, this coolant, that's about, and then the screen washers, as I said. The electrics, then, I've also checked the bulbs, the brake lights, for example, in all the modes of operation. So I've got out and had a look at the brake lights, and I've checked all the other lights. They're all fine. I've checked the horn, again, as part of the weekly checks, and I've checked the oars for rubber. Then I've checked the tyres for tread depth and tyre pressure, and they were fine, nominal for this car. And I've checked the wheel nuts to make sure they're nice and tight. I've also checked the windscreen wipers, a bit of rubber on those, and the fan belts in the engine, there's a bit of rubber in there as well. So they're all fine. Damage, D is for damage, Powdery, remember, so D is for damage. There was no damage to the car, surveyed it just before I got in, walked all around it. And Y is for yourself, or myself, and I feel fine to drive today, so I had my breakfast. I'm feeling pretty good. So basically, that's Powdery, and then B, the little B at the end is for moving brake test, which I may or may not do, depending on, this is a fairly busy road, so I might not do that. But it's not rocket science. Just get up to about 30 miles an hour and just brake fairly moderately, make sure the car doesn't do anything unusual, and make sure the brakes are working properly. So that's the second part. Then the third part then is what we're driving off into. So we're driving off into a residential area, 30 mile an hour speed limit, beautiful day. It's 9:30 in the morning. It's going to be people still on the way to work, but we should have missed the rush hour. And I'm driving about 20 miles down to Didcot, I suppose, really. And that's fine. Then finally, just kind of a startup check, run through. So I remember this using another acronym, which is the ASPS. So all the doors are locked and secure. That's A for all doors. Actually, I won't lock them here because it's debatable whether I lock them here or not. I'm going to be on a dual cardio pretty soon. I don't want my doors locked in case the worst happens and someone needs to cut me out of the car or get me out of the car. So I'll leave them unlocked for the moment. All doors locked are secure anyway. Seats and mirrors are correctly just for me. P is for pedal and panel, which we'll do in a second. The final S then for ASPS or ASPS is seatbelt. There's a couple of things on the seatbelt, and they're quite important. The seatbelt catches correctly. The inertial wheel is working. It comes out with holster correctly. You're going to hear a lot of noise now because the actual microphone's attached to the seatbelt. Just a little tie clip microphone. And it goes into the holster correctly. And it doesn't come out until I want it to. The other thing is it's down around my hips. And it's tight on my body, and crucially then it's not twisted. There's no twists in it. That all means, if any of those things weren't true, just sort them out because you'll save yourself an injury, potentially severe injury in the event of an accident. Sorry, I forgot to mention on seats and mirrors, there's a little bit more to it. The headrest is also correctly adjusted, and I can see out through all the mirrors. The headrest is level with the top of the back of my head, so that's fine, and I'm happy with the seats in terms of their position. So then pedal and panel then. So this car isn't going anywhere. There's 4 reasons why it's not going anywhere. Well, firstly, the engine isn't on, but even when I fire the engine, it won't go anywhere. First reason is the handbrake's on. Second reason was we're in neutral, clutch is down, and I've got my foot on the foot brake. So I can't go anywhere. There's another thing about the foot brake, that the car hasn't, well, it has been driven just this morning, but it's pretty firm, it's not leaking. When I put pressure on it, it's firm and it's not giving way when the engine's off. If it was, and it didn't get any better when I pumped it up, in other words, just if the car had been driven recently, sometimes you need to pump it up for it to get firm. If it didn't, then there's something wrong with it. Call the AA, don't drive the car. That's fine. And then the steering as well, I'm not going to put much pressure on this because it's a power steering car, I don't want to damage it, or even a normal steering car, I don't want to damage it. A little bit of pressure on the steering, it feels firm and it's fine. When I turn it to the ignition position, I'll just get the indicator off there. All the correct warning lights come on. In this car, I've got the motor lights come on, the blinked, and the immobiliser's gone, for example. But crucially now, I'm left on with the alternator light. That's on, and the oil light is on to tell me the oil light is working, and the handbrake light is on to tell me the handbrake's on, basically. There's also a warning light for EPS, which is electric power steering in this car. So what I'm going to do, sorry about the noise, hang on. What I'm going to do is basically fire the ignition now. I'm going to maintain a little bit of pressure on the brake and a little bit of pressure on the steering, and actually fire the ignition. We're in neutral, as I said, and there's 4 things preventing us from going anywhere. The clutch is still down. The clutch will also reduce the restraint on the starter motor, so we leave the clutch down when we fire the engine. Okay, so we're going to fire the engine then, and 2 things should happen. Well, 3 things should happen. First of all, the warning lights go out, apart from the parking brake light, which is on now. And secondly, the brake gives down to the floor. And thirdly, the steering wheel relaxed. I'm not going to put, as I said, I'm not going to turn the wheel in stationary, but it just relaxed in my hands. That was fine. Okay, so that's the cockpit drill then.